was too arrogant. And I kept building energy and building energy, and one evening my daughter came into my room in the middle of the night, and see, she's unaware of this. I didn't tell anybody. And you don't tell anybody, because you don't want any of their thoughts to interfere with your creation. And she came into my room, and she was scared because she heard a growling in her room, and she was scared, and she thought it was some kind of a monster. Well, she came into my room and told me that, and I let her sleep with me that night because she was scared, and I knew that that's what she was hearing. And I started to get a blurry kind of just a feeling in the pit of my stomach that maybe I've done something that I can't control now. And so I decided I'm not feeding it any more energy. And I left the crystal figurine in the same spot, but I'm not giving it any more energy. It's going to dissipate, and hopefully it will dissolve away. Well, it didn't. About 3 or 4 nights after that, here I am sleeping, and something jumps on my bed. I felt a very, it was almost negative. It was, and I knew what it was. It was my creation that I had created, and it was trying to draw energy from me. And this went on for about 2 or 3 nights, and I was feeling extremely tired during the day. I felt drained all the time, and that was because it really was penetrating my auric field. It was trying to draw energy because I was not putting the energy into the figurine anymore, and it still wanted to survive. Now, the thing about thought forms is when you give it enough energy, those thought forms begin to take on a life of their own in the astral. And this is some things that ancient Egyptians practiced in their protective images that they put around their temples. And these thought forms, they start to evolve into a actual astral entity. And these entities want to survive. They take on a name, a form that you gave them, and they want to survive. So they will start to draw upon energy and turn into what you may call an incubus. Like I've said before, in Iceland, the hags. They may prey upon your own energy, and then may go off and prey upon other people's energies, which you don't want this. This is not good. And so the mistake I made was that I was presumptuous enough to think that I could keep feeding it energy, and that it would be okay and under my control. And it wasn't. I'm sorry, I need to digress again. I'm trying to give you all this information in like a 25-minute video, so I have a lot to say. But that piece of paper where you wrote its function, I then burnt that in a cauldron, a little cauldron I had, burnt it, sent it out into the universe through its smoke, and I put the ashes inside of the hole that I had burrowed in the bottom of that entity. I also put its name, burnt it, put the ashes inside of it, inside of that hole. Then I took wax and I covered the rest of it so that it was smooth and filled with wax and the ashes. So anyways, back to the story. I had to dissipate the entity. I knew I had to get rid of it. I had created it, and it was my responsibility to get rid of it. So what I did is, and see, if I had let this go on any further, there's a possibility that this would not have worked. But it did work, and so I'll tell you what I did. I took the crystal that I had paid so much money for, and that I had formed that thought form with, and I took it to a place that I had gone into the woods, a place I knew I could not be disturbed. I set it on a stone, and I took a sledgehammer, and I shattered it into what must have been thousands of pieces. And I then sat down, and I visualized the thought form there. I had summoned it here to the crystal. I had summoned it and then shattered the crystal, and then I visualized the energy being dissolved into the earth and reabsorbed into the earth, reabsorbed into just non-formed astral energy. And it took me about 40 minutes to do that. I did intense visualization. I then collected the pieces of the crystal. I buried them and I put a stone over them and I said, and I told the entity, I said, you are gone. And it was gone. It never came back. I could sense it was not anywhere, and I had destroyed it. Now, the problem is, if I had let it go any further, it might not have been destroyed so easily. So, these are things I'm warning you about, and but yet, they do serve higher functions, and they are part of magic, and they do serve good functions. For example, the Native Americans, it served a function for them, and that function was to protect their sacred sites. The ancient Egyptians created thought forms through this process that I have just taught you, and created thought forms to protect their temples. Now, like me, they didn't destroy those thought forms, and those thought forms were very much real. They had the ability to go from the astral to the physical to the astral, disappear, reappear in the physical. They were very real entities, and some of which still exist in the astral. I think, and I believe, this is just intuition, this is not something I've read, but I believe after a long period of time, maybe years and years, I don't believe those entities need to prey upon other people's energies as much as they are self-perpetuating, much like your own soul is, drawing in the energy itself. But that takes a long time for it to evolve to that point, so until it does, it preys on other people's energies that's already condensed enough to take in themselves. So, I could be wrong about that, but I think that's true. Anyhow, that also explains why in the astral, some people can see, or Catholics can see the Virgin Mary. Well, that's because you have all of these Catholics who for 1,000, 2,000 years have been visualizing the Virgin Mary, praying, concentrating on her, summoning her. Well, I'm not saying there wasn't a Virgin Mary. There probably was a Mary person. But they have created an astral deity that manifests their own desires. Native Americans did that with totems. I'm sure that there are many, I know the Romans did it with their gods and the Greeks with theirs. I have very much feel that there really is a Athena out there in the astral who was created by much concentration. I believe there are those entities out there. Now, they weren't created necessarily by they were created by humans. There is something I want to say. Don't go out and practice this right now, because if you're hearing it now for the first time, I guarantee you that you do not have enough concentration and to do this. And to tell you the truth, I have not done it again. So I believe I do have a good degree of concentration, and I can project energy very well. But at this point, I don't see a purpose in doing what I did. But there may come a time in your life where you might need to draw upon thought forms for a specific purpose. But do not let them linger beyond 3 or 4 days. Destroy them once their function has been completed. That's my advice to you. And that's why I'm sharing it with you, because there may come a time where you can use it. But at this point, if you're hearing it for the first time, I guarantee you that this is not the time for you to put it into practice. To lay this knowledge on the back shelf of your magic practices and leave it there until you are sure that you can use it. And then when you are sure, you still need to be careful. But anyways, I'm going to sign off for today. I hope you learned something.